Yashodanandana Brajanandana
Yashodanandana
Yashodanandana
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Om Nyanandasya, oh sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnanasvarandasya Ginjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vansha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravan Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hari Bol.
Hare Hare.
So after a very purifying Kartik month, all the demons slain, we're back to Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're in chapter 25 of Canto 4, the characteristics of King Puranjana. So this is the first of 5 chapters in the 4th canto, where Narada Muni is preaching to a king named King Prachinabarhi. And he uses an interesting approach in order to get his message across. He tells an allegory, the story of a king named Puranjana, who's a fictional king, and who symbolizes different, the story has so many symbols that relate directly to King Prachinabarhi's life. And so at the end he realizes, wow, you've been talking about me the whole time, haven't you? And, which is big for him to admit, because it's not a very flattering story. The king becomes infatuated with a woman and totally henpecked and mad after sex, and then he takes birth as a woman in his next life. And But because she gets a good husband who's a transcendentalist, and she serves him as a wife and helps him raise a family and all of that, then she gets spiritual perfection. And so he realizes, well, geez, I guess, might as well just try to make it happen in this lifetime than having to take birth again. So we're going to read just the lead in to this allegory. Today we're covering texts 10, 11, and 12. And there's quite a bit in the purport here. I'm going to read a decent amount from the purport and we'll have some discussion. So, text 10. Asit Paranjano Nama Raja Rajan Brihatrava Tasya Vignata Nama Sit Sakha Vignata Cheshtita. Translation. My dear king, this is Narada Muni speaking. My dear king, once in the past lived a king named Puranjana, who was celebrated for his great activities. He had a friend named Avignata, the unknown one. No one could understand the activities of Avignata. Purport. Every living entity is Puranjana. The word Pura means within this body, within this form, and Jana means living entity. Thus, everyone is Puranjana. Every living entity is supposed to be the king of his body because the living entity is given full freedom to use his body as he likes. He usually engages his body for sense gratification because one who is in the bodily concept of life feels that the ultimate goal of life is to serve the senses. So King Puranjana is not just a symbol for this particular king, but for all of us, because we all have this false ego, this idea that I'm as good as a king. I'm the lord of my body, I'm the lord of my family members, I'm the lord of my community. Basically, I deserve all the attention and respect. You want more of that cheese? Would you want to get more of that spotted, like the yellow and the Irish? And just as a king is taking care of his citizens, we're constantly taking care of our senses. It's like 24/7 engagement, keeps us busy. So jumping ahead a little bit, the word Brihat Shrava is also significant. The word Shrava means fame. The living entity is famous from ancient times, for as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Najayate Mriyate Va. The living entity is never born and never dies. Because he is eternal, his activities are also eternal, although they are performed in different types of bodies. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. He does not die, even after the annihilation of the body. Thus, the living entity transmigrates from one body to another and performs various activities. In each body, the living entity performs so many acts. Sometimes he becomes a great hero, just like Hiranyakashipu or Kamsa, or in the modern age, Napoleon or Hitler. The activities of such men are certainly very great, but as soon as their bodies are finished, everything else is finished. Prabhupada is using the word great in the sense of impactful. Hiranyakashipu was a great demon. Prahlad called him the king of best of the asuras. So it's really remarkable how invested we are in this present lifetime, considering all of the lives we've had in the past, that we really feel a deep need to make something of this specific life. And that feeling is caused by ahankara, this element of material energy called the false ego. The false ego is like a mold. It takes the subtle body, the mind of the living entity, and molds it into the same shape and size of the physical body it inhabits, so that we have this sense that this is exactly what I am, and this is exactly what I should be, and I'm happy being this. There's a famous story of King Indra. When Indra was cursed, he took birth as a hog. And he had a hog wife and hog babies, little piglets. And he felt this is Indra. This happened to Indra. Indra got cursed and took birth as a pig. Did you know that? Yeah, that happened. And he was so happy because he could just roll in the mud, and on a hot day he could feel cool by covering his body in the stool mixed with the mud and cool down, just like Chandan. And he had his pig family. They loved him. You know, they'd go oink oink oink, daddy, 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 oink oink oink, you know. And they loved him. And he felt really good. And then Brahma came and said, Indra, what are you doing? It's time to come back, you know. And he wouldn't go. He said, no, what is it? What do you mean? Who is this Indra? They have there's a YouTube video out there called Pig Picasso. It's a pig who takes a brush and they give him some paint and he makes these really cool paintings. They probably have sold a number of them by now. Yeah, probably a good amount of money. That pig is making bank.
Pig eats his phone. Piggy.
Picasso filling up his piggy. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, so his fame is, you know, maybe it was Picasso. We're not going to conjecture, but they were certainly suggesting something with the name. And so what happened to, so it shows that, we take this same spirit, something stays with us. We have these impressions that stay with us. We kind of are trying the same agenda, life after life, with slight modifications. So you see people come into this lifetime with great talents and great prodigies, you know, and they're carrying over from the previous life all the hard work they did, the desires they had. But then whenever those desires might get fulfilled, then just new desires come right in and propel the living entity into another life. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu explains that the living entity has been wandering all over the material world, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona. And then only the fortunate living entity actually wakes up to that situation of, I've been wandering here for a long time, and I really don't think I'm going to find what I'm looking for here. That's a prerequisite for a real spiritual seeker. The real hallmark of a true spiritual seeker is they're done with material seeking. So in our endeavors to practice Krishna consciousness and also share Krishna consciousness with others, that's an important thing to look for. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanata Goswami explains that's the qualification of discipleship, is that a person's actually done with material seeking. Maybe there's still some inclination, some latent material desires, but they no longer have faith in the material world. Only such a person can actually take shelter of a spiritual master in a sincere way, because they know that this person is going to give me what I long for, what I'm looking for. So we're going to hear a little bit more about the wandering of the living entity in the next verse. But that's an important thing to look for when we're trying to share Krishna consciousness with people, is we want to see, have they really given up on material existence yet? If they haven't, we're going to need to modify either modify what we're giving them, or just, give them with whatever we can in the moment and move on. Because people who have not yet given up material seeking, they'll never take to bhakti yoga in a serious way, because the heart is torn, in the Bible, there's a line that's where one of the disciples of Christ says, unless you hate the world, you cannot love God. And it's not hate in the, you know, I think the English word doesn't exactly convey the sense of it, but you have to be done with the world. You have to be done with the material world. You have to be done with your material seeking to be a real spiritual seeker. So, the living entity is called Brihat Shrava. He's very famous for different activities, but it's kind of a joke here because whatever fame we accrue in one lifetime, we don't get to take into the next life. And we're constantly trying to, each lifetime we it's like, you know, it's like if you have a video game you're playing and then your character gets deleted. Man, I spent 200 hours on that character.
Well, we know that stuff. We play Sega.
Yeah. You don't even get to save exactly. You know, you just gotta play straight, you know. And
somebody
then,
bumps the cord or
yeah,
something.
or unplugs it on you. One time I had two older brothers, but I have one younger brother, and my older brother, he was the one who broke the dam of my parents' resistance to video games, so that all of us got in younger, and he didn't get video games till he was older. So anyway, one time I accidentally saved these little save memory cards.
Yeah.
And so he was very careful to his stuff was on one memory card, but then one time I accidentally switched the thing and I saved over his character, his game. And he didn't get that was a test. He's, you know, my family, they have some good qualities. He's a very tolerant person. But he had spent, you know, hours, like 2 weeks of his life at least, you know, like 9 to 5 program, probably the equivalent. 100 hours, 120 hours on that character, bam, finished. So what to speak of 100 years on this character, building him up, leveling up, getting all the skill sets, all of it, you know, and then finished. What's that?
Role-playing game.
Yeah, the ultimate RPG. Welcome, here you are. Yeah, it's super lifelike. Exactly what you've been looking for. And then it's finished. Start over from scratch. Damn, I got to build up again, you know. I don't even get to take anything. Oh, you got some impressions from your past life.
Yeah.
You can paint a little bit, you know, or you can play piano or whatever, you know, whatever it is. So in some cases, people start off with some extra money in the bank. You know, they got wealthy family members, you know, different things. Everybody starts off at a different point. But the point is, life after life, trying to make yourself so famous, so successful, you know, and when are we going to give it up? So, the living entity is called Brihadshrava. Nonetheless, he has a friend whom he does not know. Materialistic persons do not understand that God is present as the supersoul who is situated within the heart of every living entity. Although the Paramatma sits beside the Jivatma as a friend, the Jivatma or living entity does not know it. Consequently, he is described as Avignata Saka, one who has an unknown friend. So the supersoul is an expansion of Krishna who accompanies the living entity throughout all these different lives. And it's actually the supersoul who deserves the real credit. Here we are trying to get the credit, but the supersoul is just like a parent who's, you know, financing the child and supporting the child in every way. You know, like if the child has a little lemonade stand and the parent pays for the lemonade, pays for pays for the lemons, makes the lemonade, pays for the table, tells them what to do, you know, and you know, puts a little bit of starter cash in there for change. And then the kid goes out and sells some lemonade and he said, look, I made some money. And he doesn't want to give any of that to mom and dad, you know, not even a cut. But really it's their money. They paid for the table, they paid for the lemonade. They called their friends and said, hey, come buy some lemonade from my kid because he's out there and I don't want him to get discouraged in his entrepreneurial activities. Right? They went out and bought lemonade. You know, they could have got it from their fridge at a better rate because they paid, you know, $2 for a gallon from the store. but instead they go down and pay 50 cents. They take the hit financially for the sake of their kid. And the kid says, look, I made some money. It's a joke. It's a joke. But we can't see that the same situation applies to us and everything that we do in this material world, in this body, because he's an unknown friend. We can't recognize the super soul because our intelligence is covered by the illusory energy. All right, next verse, text 11. King Puranjana began to search for a suitable place to live, and thus he traveled all over the world. Even after a great deal of traveling, he could not find a place just to his liking. Finally, he became morose and disappointed. I can really relate to this one. Over the summer, Madhavi and I went on a long trek to California and then down to Arizona, and we passed through probably a dozen states. And it's like each one, oh wow, this is nice, and this is nice, and oh, this isn't so nice, and this isn't so nice. Like California, nice state, super drought problem right now, and the fires,
Costs a lot too.
And it costs a lot to live there. And then you get to Arizona. Well, this is nice. Land is cheap. You're in the middle of nowhere. No rain. It's hot. So everywhere you go in this material world, there's this saying, the grass is always greener, but in the material world, there's just there's no grass. There's nothing to graze on here really. It's just like mirage, So, all right, Prabhupada was expert at connecting with his audience. So here's how he starts the purport. The travelings of Puranjana are similar to the travelings of the modern hippies. Generally, hippies are sons of great fathers and great families. It is not that they are always poor. It's such a remarkable thing. For me, I'm just appreciating how in India, it's one thing to be poor and wander, but to be rich and to renounce your riches and wander like a beggar and not be a sadhu. What is that? What do you do with that? So the hippie phenomenon is such a uniquely American problem because we have all of the opulence. I mean, let's say uniquely capital culture problem that which in certain respects was born out of America. It's industrialized consumer society. This hippie problem that we have all of the opulence. And I say this often in when I'm speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam because it's something I experienced and many of my peers experienced, this moral dilemma of how to not feel guilty for all of the opulence that I have. When all of the other people in the world I hear are suffering, like, starving. But I don't know how to make the best use of it. And so you have people who they want to be good people. They want to be active in the right cause, So they try this cause, but none of it really hits the mark because so many reasons. But it's all this symptom of the wandering around and trying to find the right mix of material ingredients. Without realizing that I'm a spiritual being, actually. I need a spiritual solution. As stated in this verse, the living entity wants to become a Prabhu or master. The word Prabhu means master, but actually the living entity is not a master. He is the eternal servant of God. This idea of servant, it grates on the consciousness of the conditioned soul. There's a strong aversion, the idea of servitude to anything. Because we have this kind of falsely egalitarian social system and kind of mindset. But again, going back to the analogy of the child getting everything from the parents through his little lemonade stand. That's the exact dynamic between us and the super soul. Is everything we have, everything we will ever have, is being provided for by this person. And it's only natural that we use that for the pleasure of that person. It's only natural. It's not a question of forced slavery or exploitation or anything. It's just assessing the situation in the most realistic way. And then we'd actually feel pleasure because it's the loving recitation of a relationship that we're looking for. We're not looking for any material ingredient, material circumstance. We're looking for relationship, a loving relationship. Yeah, y'all done? Okay, thanks. All right. Thus in this verse it is said, "Na anurupam," that the king could never find a suitable place for his purposes. This is because in any form of life and on any planet in the material world, a living entity cannot be happy, because everything in the material world is unsuitable for the spirit soul. This is the chief characteristic of what the Bhagavatam calls cheating religion. Is the religion that tries to make good out of the material world, try to make a happy place for us here. So why is that cheating? You want to sit on my lap, or what do you want? You want some water? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Why is it cheating? It doesn't seem so bad. After all, they're praying to God. They're practicing some regulated life, and so who is cheated, and why is it called cheating religion? Who's the one being cheated here? There's not exactly one right answer. Feel free to say whatever you think is good.
Why?
Yeah. So cheating religion. So cheating religion is Prabhupada saying that everywhere the king went, he could not find a suitable place in the material world, a happy place.
Yeah.
So cheating religion, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, is the religion that tries to make this material world into a suitable, happy place for us. Yeah.
I was having this discussion on Facebook with a couple of folks who were extolling a humanist, saying, "Oh, there's something good. It's like better than a bhakta who focuses on Krishna."
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Because there's a threshold.
Let me give you the mic for the reeds in the kitchen.
Yeah. There's just this temptation to appreciate the humanitarian efforts of others and see that as more valuable than a devotee spending all their time in the temple, for example. Well, it's just being a Pujari in the temple. What is that really doing for anyone else?
Yeah.
And this idea even comes into our devotee Sundays.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, and I appreciate it as a sociological phenomenon, the lack of devotee care, the lack of felt empathy in the society and the expectations we have, so that, adjusting for that, philosophically, the humanist is just aggrandizing their own position of material energy, right? Yeah. And so their service to humanity is really their service to themselves, that humanity is so great because I'm so great, I'm so great because I'm a human.
Yeah.
And there's no eye to transcendence.
Yeah.
So even the bumbling, awkward, arrogant bhakta who's willing to admit, as you said, that none of this matters, Krishna's where it's at.
Yeah.
They're light years ahead.
Yeah.
Although the smoke and mirrors of the humanist is going to look and feel very good to all the other parts of me that I think of me, as you nicely laid out in the false ego.
Yeah. And who's cheated? Who's getting cheated? Thank you for that.
Both.
Both who?
The humanist who's extolling this and the person who believes it.
Yeah.
It's a lose-lose.
Lose-lose. The person who is practicing the cheating religion, because let's face it, everything's a religion. You can't get away from religion. Everything involves a set of beliefs, some a priori principles that are beyond empirical evidence. So you're going to have to put your faith in something. And putting your faith in the material world means you're going to get cheated. Because Because ultimately everything is going to be erased, just like the video game character. You know, all of your hard work for what? For what? How are you helping yourself ultimately? How are you helping the people that you're trying to help ultimately? So Srila Prabhupada, in his commentary on the in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, explains it, this type of so-called welfare work, to like trying to save the clothes of the drowning man. That all of us are drowning in this ocean of samsara, repeated birth and death. We're drowning, we're suffering, we're lonely, or we're depressed, or we're scared, or we're poor, or whatever we're struggling. Maybe we're hungry. You know, these are all forms of real suffering. Real suffering. And imagine, you know, you're drowning and then somebody comes and they grab your vest and swim away. And they leave you drown. And they think they're helping. It's crazy. It's totally crazy. So the person drowning is being cheated. The person who's trying to be a savior is cheating. They're also being cheated. And also Krishna is being cheated because it's his stuff. All of this material world belongs to him. He deserves to have it offered to him for his pleasure. He's also being cheated. We belong to Krishna. We don't exist. It's like the child. We don't exist. We don't have anything without the support and practical backing of the Lord. And here we're going to take all of that and use it for our own enjoyment.
So,
Yes.
question, because I just repeat about.
Johnny, can you bring the mic to
And trying to understand what exactly is being said, but with the meaning of cheating religion. Because we know that pious activities are good thing for us. It's not the highest, it's not devotional service per se, but it's, it will help us to.
Okay. Yeah.
It will help us to get there.
Yeah.
And it's been recommended in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
So what is exactly then when we say that cheating religion? Because it cannot be doing pious activities. Cheating religion in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. Very good point. So the one main thing to keep in mind is it definitely becomes a form of cheating when a person presents it or mistakes it to be the highest thing. That it's not, I'm doing this so that I can become qualified for bhakti. I'm doing this because I think this is the best use of my human form of life. And there's nothing higher. And even I find fault, like Mahaprabhu was saying, I find fault with the bhaktas who are engaged in Krishna consciousness, pure devotional service, because they're not doing my humanitarian program, which is the best. That's cheating. If our mentality and understanding is that pure devotion to Krishna is the best, but God help me, I can't live in a temple, or I can't find time to read Bhagavad Gita or meet up with devotees or chant Hare Krishna very much. So, but I believe that Krishna is God. You know, I'm gonna work on these other things like Krishna recommends in the 12th chapter of the Gita. If you can't do this, then well, at least work and offer the results to me, or at least sacrifice for something, some cause. Because by sacrifice you get knowledge, and by knowledge you can gradually attain me. So that's fine. That's not exactly cheating, but it can be cheating in a different way. When we're cheating ourselves by not striving to our highest potential. When actually we are able to do some devotional service to Krishna. Like, come on, people, you just got to chant. You know, it's not like you have to be some He-Man, right? You don't have to have super strength or super brain. You just gotta chant Hare Krishna. You know, who can't do that? So if you do believe that Krishna is the supreme person and that your purpose is to serve him, and you're not chanting Hare Krishna every day as a part of your religious practice and daily regimen for your life, that's a form of cheating oneself. And then there's philosophies and religious teachings that justify that in so many different ways, and those are the cheating religions. But the cheating religionist is a person who either believes that those things are better or cheats himself by not realizing his real potential. Does that make sense? The main thing to kind of boil it down into a sutra is any activity that reinforces the bodily concept of life. Let's all say that together. Any activity that reinforces the bodily concept of life. One more time. Any activity that reinforces the bodily concept of life, that's cheating religion. Because it's based on a false idea that I am this body. Real religion immediately takes you beyond that to the spiritual platform. I am a spirit soul. I'm eternal. My purpose is to serve Krishna. My relationship with Krishna is eternal. Like that. All right? Thank you so much.
Bhagavatam does actually call Pisces cheating religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. First chapter, verse canto.
Yeah. Now I'm approached to Kaita Botra. Yeah. Yeah. But he's right. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is a little bit more accommodating.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean,
Yeah.
Prabhupada, there's a beautiful purport that says even one who's serving a cause, as you pointed out, even though they don't understand it's the highest cause, can bring them to that. Still, though, we're talking about the Siddhanta.
Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. So here, in this purport, Prabhupada quotes the culminating teaching of the Gita, which is Sarvadhamam Prityaja. Abandon all these other religions, because actually they're cheating religions. And just surrender unto me. That's the goal, the objective, the culmination of all religion. So why not just go there? Prabhupada is saying, I'm giving you the elevator. Don't take the ladder. Don't take the yoga ladder. Don't take the stairs. Just take the elevator. You got 1,000 stories to get up, Some people, they really, they're like, what is it called? Like a sadist, the person who likes to inflict self-punishment, Like, let's take the stairs for the experience.
Fitness.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you got to get to the top. Like, there's something at stake here. It's not just fun and games. There's actually something at stake. You're about to get reset. Start over. You better get on the elevator. So at least you can get some, make some progress before that, that plug gets pulled. Your data gets lost. You got to start over with your new character, who might not be even as good as this one, even if this one you don't think is very good. Like, boy, I got a bad draw this time around. Hey, you might get a worse draw next time around. So Prabhupada said, make best use of a bad bargain. All right. This is the last verse we're going to cover for the day. This is the person who represents everyone in the material world. This is the condition we're all in. Is we're all wandering around trying to find that perfect material circumstance, and it's not anywhere to be found. So back to the original point in the first text, you have to give up material seeking. Subtle, selfish thing, selfish affair. Prabhupada would say you should not accept the guru as a fashion. So if we're trying to be a spiritual master and have a spiritual practice, but we're still engaged in our material seeking, then it means we're kind of doing that. We're making our guru and our spiritual life a part of our material program for material happiness. 1 second, Jenna. You want to lay down? Okay. We're almost done here. She's like my timer. All right. Put that a little bit here. Helps me stay. Not go over time here. Prabhupada quotes a verse from Vidyapati. Tatala Saikate Party Hindu Sama Sutta Mitaramani Samante. Material sense gratification with society, friendship, and love is herein compared to a drop of water falling on a desert. A desert requires oceans of water to satisfy it, and if only who, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is Anandamayo Kyasak, full of enjoyment. Being part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity is also seeking complete enjoyment. However, complete enjoyment cannot be achieved separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In his wanderings in the different species of life, the living entity may taste some type of enjoyment in one body or another. Remember the story of Indra as the pig. He was happy. He felt happy in that pig life. That's a big problem people have. Is they have this. We have this problem of self-deception, that we say, I am happy here. Look at what I have. Look at the life that I've built. You know, because we can't face the reality that actually deep down it was a wasted effort. It really amounted to a total loss, unless you learn something that progresses you forward spiritually. But ultimately, on the material platform, all of the hard work, all of the misery, it was a wasted effort. And when you acknowledge that and really own that, then you can just move on and accept, I'm not going to make that mistake anymore. I'm going to Krishna. I'm going full on spiritual life. No more of this loitering around in the material world. In the human, Prabhupada concludes the purport. In the human form of life, he, Puranjana, which we all are represented here by Puranjana, human form of life, he gets an opportunity to enjoy all his senses pervertedly, but the result is that he becomes so harassed in his attempted sense gratification that he ultimately becomes morose. As he tries to satisfy his senses more and more, he becomes more and more entangled. This just reminds me of this thing I saw on Facebook, this campaign about suicide awareness, that teens in the modern day, suicide is a leading cause of death for young people. And it shows what happens when you just try to go all out sense enjoyment, all out materialism. This hedonistic lifestyle it's so disappointing and depressing. It starves the soul. You'd think that it would be satisfying, like, I'm going to give you $1 million and you can just go and have fun for as long as you want. And then I'll give you another $1 million when you run out. You think, wow, sounds great. But within like less than a day, they hit this wall of this realization that they can't really put words to because they lack knowledge. They're in ignorance. But they can't formulate, why am I not happy? One of my relatives had this experience. He has kids, and after a long time of like day in, day out kid care, which is taxing, he and his wife split the kid care. They both worked part-time. Finally, he had his parents take care of the kids, and he and his wife went on like a mini vacation for the weekend. And within a few hours, he started to get this like gnawing feeling in his heart of depression. Because that vacation, that relief he was hoping would come, that this feeling of freedom, of liberation, of happiness, it wasn't coming. It was like, boy, and then I got this problem still, and this problem still, and this problem still. So it really is this verse. Mahaprabhu says, Brahmanda Pramite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva. Bhagyavan. We cannot overstate our good fortune. And we cannot overstate the good fortune of any living entity who gets this blessing of realizing that the material world is an empty desert. And I need to go to Krishna. And we are at least blessed to appreciate such an idea, if not fully embody it. So the best thing we can do is continue to chant and associate with devotees and hear Srimad Bhagavatam and pray for that realization to fully blossom in our heart. I'm done with my material seeking. I'm going to Krishna. And that's the real liberation. That's the real bliss that we're longing for. That is the complete happiness. And it's so fulfilling to give oneself, we really have been, the conditioning is really subtle and really perverted that we think giving myself entirely to Krishna is somehow selfish or wrong. I've been trying to chant some extra rounds. And there's this conditioning that, no, there's something else I should do with my time. That's selfish. And then I was just reading yesterday in the Bhagavatam, this passage where Parikshit Maharaj asks, how is it that the children, the parents of the cowherd boys in Vrindavan, how is it that they loved Krishna more than their own son when Krishna expanded as the forms of the cowherd boys? How is it possible? That doesn't seem right. And Shukadev uses this brilliant comparison to show that it's because actually every living entity is fundamentally selfish. That our so-called love for our children is actually just based on our love for this body. This child is from my body. I don't love that child because it wasn't from my body. And suddenly, a person who's a little enlightened, their love for their soul is greater than their love for their body. But the fundamental selfish nature doesn't go near. It's not that spiritual enlightenment means no longer selfish. You're the most selfish because you understood that the real self is Krishna. And you give yourself 100% to that person, Krishna. And you look for no amount of satisfaction or reciprocation from anyone else. Everything is in the context of that self-centered relationship with Krishna, Krishna-centered, in the pure selfishness, if that makes sense. So we have to give ourselves permission to just totally fall for Krishna, 100%. And it's a daring thing to do, and it feels a little bit unnatural, but that's just because of our in the material world. That when we give ourselves that permission to 100% go for Krishna, that's the way it should be. I have no other social or moral or religious obligations. It's all for Krishna. That's real fulfillment. That's what Prabhupada is talking about here. So, any reflections or questions? Yes.
I really appreciate the overall tenor of the discussion and how that was reminding me of a verse in our study of first cantos and the devotees and the community that we were doing last night. I was remembering chapter 5, text 17 of the Gita, where Krishna says, when one's mind, intelligence, faith, and refuge are all centered in me, then they can make progress and all misgivings are dropped. Yeah. And I wanted to appreciate how I felt you brought that out nicely, that the whole sense of self has to be invested in developing our relationship with Krishna, and that's the qualification of a disciple. I appreciate that from Ron. That you said from Sanatana Goswami and Hari Bhakti Vilas, I think.
Yeah. He gives just a few verses describing the preliminary. It's the section on qualifications of a spiritual master in the first philosophy. And he gives just a couple verses describing the mentality of a fit disciple.
Yeah.
That having realized the futility of material pursuits, he takes shelter of a spiritual master. And so he doesn't directly state it there, but the implication is clear that one who hasn't realized that can't really take shelter. It's the same principle of, that verse in Kunti's prayers, Janmaishvarya Shruti Shruti. But if you still have some idea that these things are worthwhile, you won't really be able to take shelter of the Lord and call out his name with feeling. So, yeah, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right. The Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Krishna.